Lisa had always been the practical type. She believed in things she could see and touch. Ghost stories, complete nonsense, psychic readings, just people making lucky guesses. So when she decided to rent the old house on Maple Street, the landlord's nervous warnings about strange happenings didn't worry her one bit. The house was beautiful in an old-fashioned way. High ceilings, wooden floors that creaked just right, and big windows that let in streams of golden sunlight. It was perfect for someone starting fresh in a new city. Lisa had just landed her dream job at the local marketing firm, and this house felt like the beginning of her new chapter. The first week went by without any problems. Lisa unpacked her boxes, arranged her furniture, and started getting used to the neighborhood. She loved her morning coffee on the front porch, and the way the evening light painted everything warm and cozy. Life was good. But then the dreams started. At first, they were just different from her usual dreams. Instead of the random, jumbled thoughts her mind usually created while she slept, these dreams were crystal clear. Like watching a movie in high definition, she found herself walking through places she had never been before. Beautiful gardens with flowers she couldn't name. Cozy coffee shops in cities she had never visited. Art galleries filled with paintings that took her breath away. The strange thing was how real everything felt. She could smell the flowers in those gardens. She could taste the coffee in those shops. She could feel the cool air conditioning in those galleries. When she woke up, it took her several minutes to remember where she really was. Lisa tried to brush it off. Maybe it was just stress from the new job and the move. Everyone knows that big changes in life can mess with your sleep patterns. She decided to ignore the dreams and focus on settling into her new routine. But the dreams kept getting more vivid and more personal. Soon, there was someone else in them. A man she had never met, but somehow felt like she knew. He was tall and had kind eyes that seemed to notice everything in the dreams. She would watch him walk through art museums, completely absorbed in the paintings. She would see him sitting in parks, writing in a notebook with the most focused expression. She would follow him through bookstores where he would pick up books and read the first few pages with genuine excitement. What made these dreams so strange was how she felt during them. It wasn't like she was just watching this person. Like in a regular dream, she was experiencing his thoughts and feelings. When he looked at a beautiful painting, she felt his sense of wonder. When he wrote in his notebook, she felt his creative energy. When he discovered a book he liked, she felt his joy. Lisa started waking up with emotions that didn't belong to her. She would feel inspired to paint, even though she hadn't picked up a paintbrush since high school art class. She would crave books about subjects she had never been interested in before. She would find herself humming songs she had never heard. The dreams became so regular that Lisa started looking forward to them. Her real life felt ordinary compared to the rich, creative world she experienced while sleeping. She began going to bed earlier, hoping for longer dreams. She would lie awake thinking about the mysterious man and wondering what new adventure they would share. During her lunch breaks at work, Lisa found herself visiting the local bookstore. Without really understanding why, she was drawn to sections she had never explored before. Philosophy books that seemed deep, art books filled with paintings that looked familiar, poetry collections that made her heart race for reasons she couldn't explain. The bookstore owner, an elderly woman with silver hair and knowing eyes, noticed Lisa's unusual browsing habits. Looking for something specific, dear? She asked one afternoon. Lisa felt embarrassed. How could she explain that she was looking for books that some dream person might like? Just exploring, she said with a shy smile. The woman nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes we're drawn to things for reasons we don't understand yet. Trust your instincts. That night, Lisa had the most vivid dream yet. She was sitting across from the mysterious man in a small cafe. This time, instead of just experiencing his thoughts, she could feel him experiencing hers. It was like their minds were having a conversation without words. She felt his curiosity about her, his gentle nature, his creative spirit, and somehow, she knew he was feeling her thoughts too. When she woke up, Lisa's heart was racing. The dream had felt different, more like a real meeting than just something her imagination had created. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what was happening to her. For the first time since the dreams started, Lisa began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, there was more to this world than what she could see and touch. Maybe the practical, logical life she had always lived was missing something important. Something magical. As she got ready for work that morning, Lisa made a decision. Instead of fighting these strange dreams, she was going to pay attention to them. She was going to see where they led her. After all, since moving to this house, she felt more alive and curious than she had in years. Little did she know that just a few blocks away, someone else was having the exact same realization about dreams that felt too real to be just dreams. Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that her dreams meant something important. After 3 weeks of the same vivid experiences, she decided to do some research. Maybe other people had lived in her house and experienced similar things. It seemed like a long shot, but she had to try. The local library was a charming old building with helpful staff who knew everything about the town's history. Lisa approached the reference desk feeling a bit silly. How do you ask about ghost stories without sounding crazy? I'm curious about the history of my house, she told the librarian, a friendly woman in her 50s. It's the old Victorian place on Maple Street. I was wondering if there are any interesting stories about it. The librarian's eyes lit up. Oh, you're living in the old Peterson place. That house has quite a history. Let me pull some files for you. 20 minutes later, Lisa was sitting at a corner table with a stack of old newspapers, property records, and local history books. What she found made her hands shake with excitement. Her house had been built in 1924 by a couple named Robert and Catherine Miller, according to several newspaper articles from the 1920s. The Millers claimed they could share dreams and read each other's thoughts. At first, people thought they were just a romantic couple, being dramatic, but then strange things started happening. Robert was a painter who had never been very successful, but after moving into the house, his paintings suddenly became incredibly detailed and emotional. Art critics said his work showed a depth of feeling that was unusual for him. Catherine, who had been a quiet schoolteacher, started writing poetry. That was published in magazines across the country. The most interesting part was what their friends and family reported. People said that Robert and Catherine would finish each other's sentences, even when they were talking about things they had never discussed before. They would buy the same book on the same day without planning it. They would wake up from the same dream and describe identical details, but the connection didn't last forever. After about 6 months, the newspaper articles stopped mentioning their unusual bond. Robert's paintings returned to his earlier, simpler style. Catherine stopped writing poetry altogether. They sold the house in 1926 and moved away, claiming they wanted a normal life. Lisa read every word twice, her heart beating faster with each page. The similarities were too strong to ignore. She was experiencing exactly what the Millers had described almost a century ago. That evening, Lisa couldn't concentrate on anything. She kept thinking about the mysterious man in her dreams. If the house really did create some kind of connection between people, then he might be real. He might be somewhere nearby, having the same confusing experiences she was having. The next morning, Lisa made a decision that surprised even her. She was going to walk around the neighborhood and see if anyone looked familiar. It felt ridiculous, like something out of a romantic movie, but she had to try. She started with the houses closest to hers. The elderly couple next door were clearly not the person from her dreams. The family across the street had young children and didn't fit either. But 3 houses down, there was a small cottage with a neat garden and books stacked on the front porch. Lisa's heart started racing. The books were the same types she had been drawn to lately. Art books, philosophy, poetry collections. She stood on the sidewalk for several minutes, trying to work up the courage to knock on the door. Before she could chicken out, the front door opened. A tall man with kind eyes stepped onto the porch to water his plants. When he looked up and saw Lisa, they both froze. It was him, the man from her dreams, for a moment. Neither of them could speak. They just stared at each other with expressions of complete shock and recognition. "I know this sounds crazy," Lisa finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I think I've been dreaming about you." The man set down his watering can and walked slowly toward the gate. "You have red hair and green eyes," he said quietly. "In my dreams, you're always curious about everything. You ask questions about art and books. And when you smile, it feels like sunshine." Lisa felt tears forming in her eyes. "You write in a notebook in parks. You spend hours looking at paintings. You read the first page of books before you decide whether to buy them." They stood there looking at each other across the garden gate, both trying to process what was happening. "I'm Jake," he said finally. "Lisa," she replied. The conversation that followed was unlike anything either Lisa or Jake had ever experienced. They sat on Jake's front porch, sharing stories about their dreams with a mixture of excitement and disbelief. Every detail matched perfectly. Jake explained that he was a freelance graphic designer who had moved to the cottage 6 months ago. He had always been creative, but recently his work had become more inspired and emotional. His clients were amazed by the depth and sensitivity of his designs. He had started writing poetry in his spare time, something he had never done before. "I thought I was going crazy," he admitted. "The dreams felt so real. But I couldn't figure out why I was dreaming about someone I had never met," Lisa told him about her research at the library and the story of Robert and Catherine Miller. Jake listened with growing amazement. "So you think the house somehow connects people?" he asked. "I don't know what to think," Lisa said honestly, "but the evidence is pretty strong. And here we are." Over the next few weeks, Lisa and Jake began what they called their experiment. They would meet in the evenings to talk about their dreams from the night before. The level of detail they could share was incredible. Lisa would describe exactly what Jake had been thinking while looking at a particular painting in his dream. Jake would tell Lisa about conversations she had with people and dream scenarios he had created. But something even more interesting started happening. They discovered they could influence each other's dreams on purpose. If Lisa focused really hard on a specific place before falling asleep, Jake would find himself there in his dreams. If Jake concentrated on a particular activity, Lisa would experience it through his perspective. One night, Lisa decided to focus on a beach she had loved visiting as a child. She fell asleep thinking about the sand, the waves, and the smell of salt air. The next morning, Jake called her before she was even fully awake. The beach with the lighthouse. He said as soon as she answered the phone, "You were building sandcastles and collecting seashells. I could feel how happy you were there as a kid." Lisa sat up in bed, amazed. "How did you know it was from when I was little?" "I felt your memories mixed with the dream," Jake explained. "I could sense that it was a special place for you, somewhere that made you feel safe and loved." Their shared experiences became more complex and meaningful. They weren't just observing each other's thoughts anymore. They were sharing emotions, memories, and even creative inspiration. Lisa found herself writing short stories for the first time in her life, inspired by the vivid worlds they created together in dreams. Jake's artwork became more colorful and joyful, influenced by Lisa's optimistic outlook. Their friends and co-workers noticed the changes in both of them. Lisa seemed more confident and creative at her marketing job. Her presentations were more engaging, and her ideas were fresher and more original. Jake's clients were so impressed with his recent work that he had more projects than he could handle. But the most remarkable change was how connected they felt to each other, even when they were awake. They would think about calling each other at the exact same moment. They would arrive at the coffee shop at the same time without planning it. They would buy each other the same book as a surprise gift. "It's like we're becoming one person with two bodies," Lisa said one evening as they walked through the park near their houses. "Is that a good thing or a scary thing?" Jake asked. Lisa considered the question seriously. "Both, I think. It's the most amazing experience I've ever had, but it's also intense in a way I wasn't prepared for." Jake nodded. "Sometimes I can't tell which thoughts are mine and which are yours. Yesterday I spent an hour looking for a book I was sure I wanted to read. But then I realized it was something you had been thinking about. They were sharing something that very few people in history had ever experienced. The connection was beautiful and strange and overwhelming all at once. Neither of them knew where it would lead. But they were both committed to finding out together. As they sat on a park bench watching the sunset, Lisa realized that her practical, logical worldview had completely changed. She now believed in magic, in connections that couldn't be explained by science, in love that transcended the normal boundaries of human experience. "What do you think happens next?" Jake asked, taking her hand. Lisa smiled, feeling a wave of emotion that belonged to both of them. "I have no idea, but I can't wait to find out." After 2 months of sharing their extraordinary connection, Lisa and Jake began to notice that their special bond was changing their lives in ways they hadn't expected. What had started as a magical experience was becoming complicated. Lisa found herself struggling to focus at work during important meetings. She would suddenly feel Jake's emotions washing over her. If he was frustrated with a difficult design project, she would feel that frustration right in the middle of presenting her marketing ideas. If he was excited about a new book he was reading, her mind would wander to thoughts that weren't her own. Her boss, Mrs. Thompson, called her into the office one Tuesday afternoon. "Lisa, your work has been excellent lately, but you seem distracted during meetings. Is everything okay at home?" Lisa didn't know how to explain that she was psychically connected to someone and couldn't control when his thoughts would interrupt her own. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Thompson. I've been dealing with some personal changes. I'll do better at staying focused." Jake was having similar problems. His art had become more emotional and powerful, which his clients loved, but he was losing his sense of individual creativity. Sometimes he would start a design project with his own vision, only to find that Lisa's thoughts and preferences had completely taken over by the time he finished. He would create beautiful work that felt like it came from someone else's mind. The most challenging part was that they couldn't turn the connection off. Even when they tried to spend time apart, they could feel each other's presence in their thoughts. Lisa would go out with her college friends, trying to have a normal evening, but she would know exactly what Jake was doing at home. Jake would visit his family on weekends, but part of his attention was always tuned to Lisa's activities. Their friends and family started to worry about them. Lisa's best friend Amy noticed the changes right away. "You're different," Amy said during one of their weekly coffee dates. "You seem distracted all the time, like you're listening to something the rest of us can't hear. And you keep smiling at random moments for no reason." Lisa tried to laugh it off. "I'm just happy lately. Is that so weird?" "It's not weird to be happy," Amy said carefully. "But it's weird to be happy about things that aren't happening to you. Yesterday you got excited about a painting you had never seen. Last week you knew the answer to a trivia question about architecture, and you hate architecture." Jake's brother David had similar concerns. During a family dinner, he pulled Jake aside. "Mom and Dad are worried about you. You seem like you're only half here when we're talking. And your art style has completely changed. It's beautiful, but it doesn't feel like you anymore." The pressure of keeping their connection secret was exhausting. Lisa and Jake felt like they were living double lives. They couldn't explain to anyone why they were so close, or how they seemed to know each other so well after such a short time. People assumed they were dating, but their relationship was much more complex and hard to define. The breaking point came during Lisa's birthday party. Her friends had planned a surprise celebration at her favorite restaurant. Lisa was genuinely touched by their effort, but throughout the evening, she kept feeling Jake's emotions. He was working on a particularly challenging project and feeling frustrated and tired. His exhaustion mixed with her party happiness, creating a confusing blend of emotions that made her feel dizzy and overwhelmed. Halfway through dinner, Lisa excused herself and went to the bathroom. She called Jake from her phone. "I can feel everything you're feeling right now," she whispered. "I'm at my birthday party, and I should be having fun. But I'm exhausted because you're exhausted." Jake sighed on the other end of the line. "I know. I was trying to block it out so you could enjoy your party. But I don't think I can control it anymore." This morning I spent an hour looking for my keys, and then I realized I was feeling your frustration about something completely different. They both realized that their magical connection had become a burden. They were losing themselves in each other, and it was affecting every aspect of their lives. That night, they met at the park between their houses to talk honestly about what was happening to them. "I love sharing this experience with you," Lisa said, sitting on their usual bench, "but I feel like I'm disappearing. I can't tell which thoughts are mine anymore." Jake nodded sadly. "I know, and I'm worried that we're not really getting to know each other as separate people. How can we have a real relationship when our minds are connected like this?" They made a difficult decision. They would try to find a way to control their connection, or, if necessary, to end it completely. They owed it to themselves and to their friends and family to figure out how to live normal lives again. Lisa and Jake spent the next week researching everything they could find about psychic connections. They read old books, searched online forums, and even consulted with a local expert on paranormal experiences. What they discovered gave them hope and also prepared them for a difficult truth. Dr. Patricia Wells, a psychology professor who had studied unusual mental phenomena for 30 years, agreed to meet with them. She listened to their story with professional interest and genuine kindness. "What you're describing is extremely rare," she told them in her comfortable office filled with plants and soft lighting. "I've only encountered a few similar cases in my career. The good news is that these connections are usually temporary. The challenging news is that you can't control when or how they fade." She explained that psychic connections like theirs seem to serve a specific purpose. "In every case I've studied, the connection brought people together for a reason. Sometimes it was to help them through a difficult period in their lives. Sometimes it was to inspire creativity or personal growth. And sometimes it was simply to help them find each other. So it will end eventually?" Jake asked. "Based on the historical pattern, yes," Dr. Wells said gently. "These connections typically last between 3 to 6 months. As they fade, people usually discover whether the relationship can exist without the psychic element." Lisa felt both relieved and scared. She had grown so accustomed to feeling Jake's presence in her mind that the thought of losing that connection felt like losing a part of herself. Over the next few weeks, Lisa and Jake noticed that Dr. Wells had been right. Their shared dreams became less frequent and less vivid. The constant awareness of each other's emotions started to fade. They could spend hours apart without knowing what the other person was doing. At first, the change felt lonely and strange. Lisa would wake up from ordinary dreams and feel disappointed that she hadn't shared an adventure with Jake. Jake would work on art projects and miss the creative inspiration that had come from their connection. But something wonderful began to happen as the psychic bond weakened. They started getting to know each other as regular people, without the intensity of shared thoughts. They could have normal conversations about their different opinions and experiences. They discovered things about each other that the mind connection had never revealed. Lisa learned that Jake was incredibly patient and kind, but also that he had a stubborn streak and strong opinions about movies. Jake discovered that Lisa was naturally optimistic and curious, but also that she could be anxious about big decisions and had a secret love of cheesy romantic comedies. Their relationship became more balanced and more real. Instead of being overwhelmed by each other's emotions, they could offer each other support during difficult days. Instead of sharing every thought, they could surprise each other with gifts and ideas. 3 months after their first meeting, the psychic connection was completely gone. They were sitting in their favorite coffee shop, talking about plans for the weekend, when Lisa realized she had no idea what Jake was thinking. For the first time in months, his thoughts were completely private. "It's really over, isn't it?" she said quietly. Jake reached across the table and took her hand. "The connection is over. But we're not." He was right. What they had built together was stronger than the supernatural experience that had brought them together. They had learned to trust each other, to communicate openly, and to appreciate each other's differences. 6 months later, Jake asked Lisa to move in with him, not because they were psychically connected, but because they genuinely enjoyed spending time together and wanted to build a life as partners. They kept the story of their unusual beginning private, sharing it only with Dr. Wells, who added their case to her research. They also left a detailed journal hidden in Lisa's old house, hoping it might help future residents understand what was happening if they experienced something similar. Lisa and Jake's love story had started with magic, but it had grown into something even better, a real, honest, lasting relationship built on mutual respect and genuine affection. They had learned that the most extraordinary connections are the ones we choose to nurture, not the ones that are forced upon us by mysterious circumstances. Looking back, they both agree that their psychic connection had been a gift, not because of the magical experiences they shared, but because it had brought them together and taught them what true partnership could feel like. They had slipped into each other's minds and hearts and decided they wanted to stay there forever.